Hi, Julia. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to VCUP 15, the Vegan Convergence of the Peoples, number 15. We are so happy to have Julia Barnes with us. She is an acclaimed filmmaker. I'm sorry, I don't have your bio right in front of me, and I did. Give me just 1 second, if you don't mind. Oh, where'd it go?
Once you do find it, why don't you start over so that we can have a complete presentation, given that it's
Yeah,
so
okay,
late.
since it's not the top of the hour anyway, yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
Well, I'll just read it from the Trello board then, because I can't find it quickly.
And just so you know, I may not be able to make it actually go full screen. Oh, yes, I will. Okay, I can.
Okay, good.
Oh, good, yeah, because it's a beautiful movie. I've seen it once now. I get to see it again. I'm going to introduce Julia Barnes to our VCUP number 15, Vegan Convergence of the Peoples. And she is an award-winning filmmaker, director of the film that we're just about to see called Sea of Life. And she's also put out another movie called Bright Green Lies, which we will let her tell you about. I think we're going to view the film first, and then Julia will be available for questions and answers afterwards, if that's okay with you, Julia.
Perfect.
And you'll let me
Okay.
know when to start the film?
Oh, I have such mixed emotions watching that film. I want to rejoice at the beauty of it. And yet I want to cry because of what we've done. And I love that you had such optimism at the end of the film, that you really are optimistic about the future. I think the solution is we have to get all those old people out of politics and bring in only young people who do know what we're facing here, and who will inherit the world that my generation and previous generations have created. So I'm a bit emotional, but we do have some good questions here in the chat. I will ask you. Okay, so Ray asks, says the youth movement outside the COP summits demanding a future is very moving, but was strictly focused on policies for the energy sector. Julia, can you comment on the political positioning required to phase out products of the fossil fuel industries, and whether that messaging thus far required giving agricultural emissions a pass? And then there's a follow-up question to that too from him.
Okay. Yeah. The youth movements that we've seen, and I think I was a bit frustrated going to all the protests while I was watching the film, because it seemed like, not just the youth, but everyone who was there, it's kind of this very monomaniacal focus on the fossil fuel industry, which of course is a huge problem, but then is not taking a very holistic look at all of the other things that are driving life on the planet. It's extinct. There's so much wrong with, everything really about the way that this modern industrial civilization functions, including, of course, animal agriculture. And oftentimes all of that is left out of the picture, left out of the conversation. I don't think we can really blame youth activists or activists of any age for not knowing about those things, because we're, being fed all of this media and all of this messaging from the big green groups. So it's really, let's just focus on this one thing, which is interesting. Even so many things are not counted. Like in my next film, my kind of follow-up film to this, Bright Green Lies, we talk about how the methane emissions that come from hydroelectricity aren't counted. Dams are often considered carbon neutral, when in fact they emit more carbon sometimes than a coal-fired power plant. And the same is true for biomass, which is another form of thing that's considered green energy and counted as carbon neutral in some cases, and absolutely isn't. And yeah, the emissions from agriculture, animal agriculture, are often not being counted or not being pushed back against in the same way. So that really needs to change, and people need to become aware, at least, of the fact that all of these other problems exist, that it's not just this one industry that we need to be pushing back against, but it's really the whole package, this whole kind of anthropocentric worldview that is destroying the world. You are muted.
Sorry, because I have my phone going off sometimes too. Okay, let's see. His follow-up question is, do you feel that selective attitude will dissolve and food emissions will soon be properly accounted in global policies?
Hopefully. I don't know if there's much evidence that that's going to happen, but it should, and it needs to. And beyond just accounting for it, then we need to see things really change. I mean, much as we've been accounting for the emissions from the fossil fuel sector, we haven't been reducing them. So accounting is one step, but then actually working on the problem apparently is a whole other thing.
I was wondering, because it seemed that John Kerry was quite an advocate for the oceans. And do you know where he stands today? Is he still active, an activist, or can we contact him and ask him to do more or support him? Where does he stand today?
I don't know. I haven't been following his political career at all, really. And I mean, part of that is I'm actually based in Canada. So yeah, that was kind of my first introduction to him, was seeing him at our ocean conference and hosting that. And yeah, can't say that I've kept on top of knowing anything about him since. Maybe
Well, then I'll just have to do some research, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good.
We have lots of comments here. Not necessarily questions. Oh, here's one. Where did you get the inspiration to give sorry, something's blocking here. All the marine life equal billing with humans?
That was my mom's idea, actually. She came up with that one. It was a very good idea. People comment on that all the time. And they're like, yay, you included the non-humans. Yeah, did that in my second film as well, I think. Yeah, that should start to become the norm, to recognize that they're people too and they deserve credit.
Well, yeah, they have every right to be here as much as we do. Okay, let's see what's next here. Julia, we would be interested in creating a learning guide for your files. And then there's a contact list or contact address from Julia. It's in the chat if you want to copy that. And then someone put a link to your follow-up movie, Big Little Lies, Bright Green Lies.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So are there any other questions? Anyone want to raise their hand? There was so much information packed in your film. I've seen it twice now, and I'm going to have to see it again. And I hope that I'll be able to show it to my grandchildren.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
I see a couple people have their hands up.
All right, well, let's just take them in order here. BJ, you're first on my screen. Go ahead. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I wonder, Julie, I will love the film, and I wonder if you have other examples like Cavo, who stopped the fishing industry. I know that Cuba stopped the shark industry for a while, way back, and things blossomed again in the sea. But I wonder if you have other examples of that since then, because that's a wonderful thing if that could spread. Thank you.
Yeah, The Bahamas is another good example in terms of they haven't stopped fishing, but they have banned the fishing of sharks. So it's a shark sanctuary, and the shark populations there are quite incredible. It's kind of the go-to place for anyone around here who wants to dive with sharks. So that's where you see the great hammerheads that are in the beginning and the end of the documentary, but also I've been there and surrounded by like 50 Caribbean reef sharks. So they do really well. Yeah, anywhere where you leave the ocean alone, unsurprisingly, it flourishes. And yeah, I don't know of too many examples where fishing has been banned outright. There's certainly lots of marine protected areas around the world that are protected to some degree or another. But then you get into the issues of illegal fishing often coming in, like in the Galapagos, that's kind of a big thing. So it's technically protected, but there's satellite footage and it's like encircled by fishing vessels, and they turn off their trackers and then they come in and fish. So yeah, you know, it's quite difficult to enforce things like that. And yeah, Cabo Pulmo is kind of lucky in the sense of being in this part of this relatively protected, like inner part of the Gulf of California, where outsiders are not likely to come in and illegally fish there.
I have another question, if that's okay. And that is, when I saw you swimming with that hammerhead down below you, I thought, what a thrill that must have been. And then I'm realizing you must have been thrilled a lot of times. Do you have some special, I mean, are they all special? Would you like to tell us about something that you've swam, who you've swam with that was amazing?
Definitely. It was all really magical. Like the first time I went for a dive on a coral reef, it was in Key Largo, and it was just like the most incredible thing. I met a sea turtle, fish of all different types and varieties who I don't know their names. I still to this day couldn't name half of the species that I met that day, but I saw 2 sharks on that dive, and I'd been told all before going there, like, your chances of meeting a shark are really low because they've mostly been fished out, and you're probably not going to see any sharks when you go there. But I saw 2, which was incredible. Like I had that was the one animal I really wanted to meet because I love sharks since watching Shark Water. And I saw a school of parrotfish who are this kind of midnight blue. They're called midnight parrotfish. They're kind of this dark blue, and they swam over the edge of the reef, almost like a waterfall going over this big school of them. And there was just so much life all in that one day. And something about being on a coral reef, you really witness the interconnection between different species, the way that they all interact with each other. And there are so many different relationships, and you get a sense for the balance and the way everyone has evolved together, and the kind of symbiosis that exists on a reef, I think, is really incredible and just gives you a whole new perspective on the way that life on the planet works. Like you hear about interconnection a lot, but on a reef you can really feel it and experience it. And but yeah, every dive has just been like Cabo Pulmo. One of my favorite things about that was watching the garden eels. Garden eels are those ones who poke out of the holes in the sand, and they do this little dance. I could have just watched them for hours. Like everything in the ocean is so fascinating and mesmerizing, and you know, you're on a dive and you kind of go here, and here, and it's all very quick, and like you only have an hour's worth of air, so you don't get to really watch anything as long as you want to. But you know, I went on like 20 dives for the film. It wasn't that many. But if I was someone who had the opportunity to dive a lot, I think I would want to just sit in one place for the full hour and just enjoy what is right in front of me. There's so much richness in the sea and so much magic.
Thank you.
I can attest to that. I grew up in Hawaii and did a lot of scuba diving and snorkeling in the waters off of Oahu. So I know exactly what you mean by that. In fact, I married my scuba instructor. I always say that it's hazardous to your health if you marry your scuba instructor. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? If not, then we can, I think Ray had a couple of questions. Let's see. Go back into Ray's. Let's see. Well, he mentioned that he Googled John Kerry and that John Kerry insisted that Americans will not have to consume less meat going forward in order to combat climate change. So he's not really on our side here yet, I guess. On the side of humanity and life on Earth. Oh well, we'll have to find other advocates, or as Paul Watson says, a lot more celebrities. They sell.
Yeah.
They sell the information. Someone asked, what info did you have that made you fearless of sharks? Well, I think you sort of answered that, but go ahead and say what you'd like to say.
I watched the documentary Shark Water when I was very young. I think I was about 12. And that was kind of my first, I mean, yeah, everybody hears, I guess, about shark attacks in the news and Shark Week on Discovery making them look scary, but really my first introduction to having some idea of what sharks are all about was through the documentary Shark Water, which portrays them as really being the victims of shark fishing, shark finning, and bycatch, and the fact that humans wipe out hundreds of millions of sharks every year, and sharks bite humans so rarely, given the amount of time that we spend swimming in the ocean. And, you know, that documentary, it was like Rob Stewart swimming with sharks and being completely fine. And I just, from watching that, I loved them. And I had no fear of them. Obviously, you have to think about the way that you interact with sharks in the water. They are big animals, and it's not like we should go around petting them and expecting them to be harmless. And, you know, there's kind of this culture of like people swimming with sharks and almost using them as props for their photography and like growing their Instagram accounts. And you have to be careful of letting things go too much in that direction as well, because we need to respect the large animals, but also recognize that they're not monsters. They're not out to get us, and they're just trying to live their lives in the ocean. They're often kind of curious about humans, but my experience has been often they're quite shy and easily scared away. It depends on the individual. I mean, they all have different personalities, but it's really interesting to like spend a day with a whole bunch of different sharks of the same species and realize that, oh, some of them really like to hang out on the outside and like kind of quite afraid of you and don't want anything to do with you. And some of them will come right in and like bump your camera. They're really interested in cameras because they have electromagnetic, the sensory system under their snout, the ampullae of Lorenzini, that can sense electric pulses in the water. So anytime you have electronics, it stimulates them. And so some of them can be quite bold. And yeah, it's just really cool to see their personalities, to spend enough time with them to get to know that they're really all individuals and all different.
Well, I have a final question on this film, and then you can tell us about Green Little Lies. Green Big Lies, Bright Lies? I'm sorry. I don't
bright green lies.
Green Lies. Okay, sorry. I would just like to ask you, because I know everyone will take this in their own way, but what would you like for us to take away from this film?
What would I like for you to take away from it? That we really need more people to take action, whatever that means for you. But I want people to think about, what skills do you have? What are you really passionate about? There's so many areas where things need to change, and I'm sure, you know, most people on this call are already activists in some respect. But if you feel particularly inspired or called to protect the ocean, I think one big thing we need, and maybe where we could have the most leverage, would be to end subsidies for commercial fishing. Because, you know, more than on an individual basis, all of us can stop eating fish and boycott eating fish, and probably everybody here already has. But so many fisheries are subsidized beyond, like, they would not otherwise be profitable without them. So if we could get that taken away, you know, it would go a long way in terms of taking the pressure off the ocean. I think a lot of fisheries couldn't continue without the subsidies. So that's kind of a thing in the political realm. But I mean, if there's someone, I guess you can write a letter to or get involved. There maybe are already petitions on that. That I think that's something that could maybe realistically happen, and happen really quickly, and have a big impact.
Beautiful. Okay, would you like to tell us about the subsequent film, which I've already forgotten the name of again?
Oh no, it's not a memorable name, I guess. Bright Green Lies is a film about the technological kind of solutions that have been proposed to the climate crisis, I guess, but environmental problems in general, and I guess about the issue with the singular focus on climate as the issue. But yeah, it looks at how so many of the things that are being purported as solutions are actually harmful to the planet. They're not doing what they're purported to be doing in terms of a benefit, but they're making things worse and perpetuating more of the same, more extraction, more consumption, and the continuation of this way of life and this mentality that everything on the planet exists for us to consume, that we can keep having infinite economic growth, and all of these things that are really at the root cause of the problems that we're facing. So it kind of systematically goes through and talks about why some of the things that people have really been putting their energy into are not good things, and how we need a big change in terms of the strategy of the mainstream environmental movement, because clearly it's not working.
Clearly. Well, thank you so much, Julia, for your beautiful film and for agreeing to come and talk about it today with us. It's given us a lot to think about and to do about.
Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for watching.
And for those of you who are joining us late, the whole VCOP will be available on Facebook and our YouTube channel after today. Today's after today, and tomorrow's after tomorrow, and also later on the Trello board. So we'll put those links in for you later. Thank you again.
Do we have time for one more question?
Oh, do we? Okay.
Yes. Willow. Are you there, Willow?
Oh, I wanted to go back to the topic of what is being done in regards to the actions. You mentioned, that when you sit and you watch the fish, you could stay there for a very long time. And I did think about the animals that I sit and watch, and having that great fortune to be able to do that. So protecting the birds also is known to where they're able to tell us just how badly we are damaging the planet. And just wanted to add that next month we're in Texas here, and we are to vote whether farmers can get more rights than what they have now in order to prevent any type of government enforcement. And that is concerning. And from hopefully people will realize that that could be a problem in regards to the amount of cattle that is being produced and killed here. So yes, we're having to rely on legislation, and at the same time, very concerned by the fact that legislation is not set up towards our favor. But I do get very excited of being just one of the millions of people. Together we can come up with solution and make things happen for the better, for the planet, for the humans. And also, I spent time focusing on the amount of waste and the plastic in the ocean, and that wasn't brought up. But yes, the problem is so immense. I'm shocked with 90% of, fish that have been extinct in the last 200 years, and it's pretty shocking. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.